And to details, President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi on Wednesday attended a business breakfast with some U.S. Republican congressmen in Washington. The meeting with Republican congressmen from the U.S. states of Kentucky, Texas, Ohio, and South Carolina came at the start of the president's activities in Washington, where he arrived on Tuesday to participate in the U.S.-Africa Summit. During the meeting, President al-Sisi hailed strategic and strong ties that bind Egypt and the U.S. and said Cairo is keen to communicate with decision-makers circles in Washington within the framework of mutual consultations and coordination regarding various issues. The president expressed Egypt's appreciation for the role played by the U.S. Congress in enhancing partnership between the two nations, adding that Egypt is looking forward to expanding such partnership in different channels of joint cooperation that aims at achieving mutual interests. For their part, the U.S. congressman reiterated that Egypt is a key ally to the U.S. in the Middle East region and hailed its pivotal role as a cornerstone for peace and stability in the Middle East, the Mediterranean and Africa. They further praised Egypt's efforts in confronting terrorism and extremism, as well as boosting religious forgiveness concepts, plus the country's balanced positions to reach peaceful settlements concerning various crises in the region. The president also held a meeting with members of Egypt's France group at the U.S. Congress from both the Republican and Democratic parties. During the meeting, President al-Sisi stressed the strategic Egyptian-American relations, stressing Egypt's keenness to boost relations with the U.S. The congressman stressed that the U.S. will not forget Egypt's efforts to spread the culture of peace and coexistence in the Middle East. During his visit to Washington, President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi met with U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken. The president also attends the concluding session of the U.S.-Africa Business Forum. President al-Sisi also takes part in a dinner banquet hosted by U.S. President Joe Biden at the White House to honor African leaders participating at the U.S.-Africa Summit. Earlier, President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi arrived in Washington to take part in the U.S.-Africa Leaders Summit. Presidential spokesman Ambassador Bassam Radi said that President al-Sisi intends to focus on the issues that concern African countries in the light of the current international challenges. The president will also underscore the importance of boosting African-American partnership to confront food security crisis and the need to facilitate the merge of African countries into world economy. The president's agenda also includes meetings with several U.S. senior officials to discuss means of boosting bilateral cooperation. President al-Sisi will also hold talks with a number of world leaders on the sidelines of the summit. The U.S.-Africa Summit, hosted by U.S. President Joe Biden, continued its activities in Washington on Wednesday. Meanwhile, the U.S.-Africa Business Forum discussed the future of U.S.-Africa trade and investment relations, as well as partnerships to finance African infrastructure and energy transition. U.S. President Joe Biden called on Wednesday for a broad partnership with Africa and highlighted new U.S. investment, saying closer ties were crucial for the world. Biden also outlined some of the $55 billion in U.S. funding planned for Africa over the next 3 years, including $100 million for clean energy. Prime Minister Dr. Mustafa Madbouli headed on Wednesday the weekly cabinet meeting on a number of social and economic files. In a press conference after the meeting, the Prime Minister said that the government is taking quick steps to face soaring prices, adding that it would not allow an exaggeration in prices. The Prime Minister noted that a 2-week period would be given to all commercial outlets to set prices for commodities. The Premier stressed that the government would take necessary measures to confront hikes in prices, calling on citizens to report any store that does not announce prices after the expiry of the 2-week deadline. The Prime Minister pointed out that penalties would be issued for shops that refrain from announcing commodity prices. The Prime Minister said that the state shoulders its financial responsibilities to alleviate burdens on citizens. The Ministry of Interior continues efforts to combat all crimes, especially those harming the national economy. The ministry announced in a statement that it succeeded to arrest gang members for trading in smuggled gold pieces, diamonds and precious stones. The statement also added that the ministry detained a suspect for charging of counterfeiting local and foreign currencies. The ministry also affirmed keenness on preserving the country's security and combating all types of crimes nationwide.